scissors and shears, if you guys are wondering what the technical difference is in those two names, because I kind of use them interchangeably, I shouldn't, but I do. A shear is any scissor where the length of the blade on it is over 6.5 inches. A scissor is any scissor where the length of the blade is 6.5 inches or less. So again, I use those interchangeably. Those names, like I said, I probably shouldn't. However, the average price that people pay for their shears, they use them in these salons today, they range from $100, $150. I've seen these things in hair shows for like $900, you guys. You spend anywhere near that kind of money, you need to take care of them. So there's a few things you can do that make them last longer and work better. Number one, during a haircut, you set them down. Never set them down with the blades open like this on your hard countertops. When you do that, you tend to get these little tiny nicks and chips in the edges of the blades. When you're cutting hair, the hair gets in those nicks and chips, it causes it to fold over. That's why they have to be sharpened. That's one of the main reasons. So whenever you set them down, always make sure you close the blades. The best thing you can do is keep a towel, a paper towel, one of those rubber computer mouse pads in your service area. Only set it on that. If you do that, you reduce the frequency of having to sharpen them. The rule of thumb with every scissor, the less you sharpen them, the longer they last you. It's a good rule of thumb. The other thing is when they stop cutting hair, this is going to happen to everybody. Before you just send them in to have them sharpened, to check to see if they need sharpening, all you have to do is open the blades. Take the edge or the back of your thumbnail, set it on the back of the blade, and gently rub it to the front. When you rub your thumbnail to the front of the blade, if you feel a little nick or chip, if it's there, you're going to feel it, you guys. That means the blades need to be sharpened. But a lot of times when you check the blade, they're completely smooth. You don't feel anything, but your scissor does not cut hair. It keeps folding the hair. What's happened there, more than likely, the blades are too loose. So to check to see if they're adjusted properly, just hold them level like this, lift up the ring finger, and let it drop. If they just flop down without any resistance, the blades are too loose. All you have to do is take the dial. If it's a screw, you need a screwdriver, turn it to the right, so when you lift up the ring finger, it stays up by itself, just a slight touch down. Always check that first when your scissor stops cutting hair. More than likely, that's what it is. And also, always remember, the scissors are the sharpest. At least from my experience, they're the sharpest when you cut at the top inch and above of the blades. They're going to be the least sharp if you do all your hair cutting down at the base of the blades where the screw or dial is. They're not going to be as sharp for you. So always remember that when you're cutting hair. Be conscious of that. These are real pretty. I said this last time. My wife thinks this stuff is jewelry. They're not. They're scissors. What makes these pretty is something called titanium. What titanium is on a shear, it's an ultra-fine aluminum-like alloy that some of the scissor manufacturers use to coat the steel. And what that does is it prevents the scissor from ever rusting, and that's a good thing. But the reason why I'm making a big deal of this, you're going to see these in the marketplace, especially the shows. Some of the vendors that sell titanium scissors may try and tell you because these are titanium, you never have to sharpen them. You don't have to sharpen them nearly as much. That's not true. It's got nothing to do with the sharpening. There is no such thing as scissors, by the way, that never need sharpening. You cut 10 heads of hair a day, you cut a lot of dry hair or dirty hair, you got to sharpen the blades. I'll pass a couple of these up, guys. You can try them. I want to pass this scissor out to you that has the black dial on it. Pass this around the room. This is a Japanese steel scissor. This is a 440C heating grade, I believe. If you cut 10 heads of hair a day with this scissor and you take care of it, you shouldn't have to sharpen it once, maybe twice a year or so. This scissor with the silver dial on it, this is a 330 heating grade steel scissor. You can buy these in the beauty supplies, I don't know, $30, $40 or so. If you cut 10 heads of hair a day with this scissor every day, you're going to have to sharpen it every few weeks. The problem is after 3, maybe 4 sharpenings, sharpeners can no longer get an edge on the steel to make it sharp enough to cut hair. You got to throw it out and buy a new one. The reason why I'm passing these out to you guys, put them both in your hand. Open them, close them, feel them. You're going to see, at least in my opinion, it's hard to tell the difference between these two scissors. I'm not trying to scare you, but here's the deal. These are not regulated. They don't go through the FDA like your shampoos, your conditioner pretty much goes through the FDA. These don't. Vendors in these shows can take a $30, $40 scissor and very easily mix them in with, like a $200 scissor. So the two questions, always ask a vendor before you buy a scissor. First question, what country is the steel from? Second question, what's the heating grade of the steel? If you're going to cut any kind of quantity here, you guys, you want to try and get 440 steel. Not only does it last longer, it works a lot better. So, okay, let's go into the ergonomics and then we'll finish up. As students, especially guys, sometimes it's really hard to figure out what scissor is good for your hand. So I'm gonna show you this. Hopefully this will help you a little bit. All scissors are made one of three ways. They all have the blades and the finger holes. What separates them is this little piece of metal that attaches the blades to the thumb. It's called a shank. Funny name, that's what it's called. When it attaches below the thumb, you put your ring finger, your thumb in, your wrist always stays up in the air. If it attaches to the middle of the thumb, like this one, it goes right to the middle of the thumb, you put your ring finger, your thumb in, your wrist can go up or down, or it'll attach to the very top of the thumb, like this one. Goes to the top. You guys see this, right? I'm not talking to myself. It goes above the thumb. You put your ring finger, your thumb in this type of a handle, your wrist stays completely down in its most relaxing position. I want to emphasize this handle and this handle to you guys. These are called crane handles. All scissor companies make these today. If you're having some issues at school, some of you guys go home at night, your wrist might hurt, cutting your clients, your dowel heads, you may want to consider a crane handle when you're buying a scissor. So I'll pass all three of these out. Pass these around. The one that's purple, look at that closely. If you're having some wrist issues, you want to stay away from that type of a handle. Shank goes below the thumb, keeps your wrist up. Now, I'm not supposed to recommend scissors to you guys, to students, a policy, but buy this one. It's a joke. These are called swivel thumbs. You mentioned that earlier, okay? These are swivel thumbs. This is where the thumb turns for you. The advantage to a swivel thumb scissor, let's say you're doing a horizontal cut, a vertical cut, you're point cutting like this with your shear. Well, on a regular scissor, I think this is too big for my hand, too small for my hand. On a regular scissor, you're point cutting like this. Look at my wrist. My wrist is bent, my elbow's up. With a swivel thumb, it allows me to bring my elbow down and my wrist flat. No pain in the wrist, much more relaxing. To try these, because you have to get used to them, hold the scissor upside down and just turn your wrist and move your thumb up and down like this, just like you're shaking somebody's hand with it. So you just take it like this, turn your wrist, and just move your thumb up and down. So, well, I don't know what pass these on. Don't shake their hand, I'm kidding about that. Now, the other thing you can get to really mess you up is a double swivel. These are more tricky now. Double swivels, the thumb turns north and south, east and west, two different directions. Double swivels are designed for people with carpal tunnel. If you have carpal tunnel, every time you move your thumb it hurts. With a double swivel, the thumb movement is much less than a regular scissor. 3-hole scissor, or now a 2.5 hole. These are really cool. On a 2-hole scissor, you guys may have seen these before, you hold the scissor out, the blades tend to point down. With a 3-hole, watch this. I put my middle finger into the 3rd finger hole, you always get a 0-degree cut. 3-hole or a 2.5 hole, either way gives you the 0-degree cut. So I'll pass those out. Those you're always guaranteed that. And then ergonomically, your best bet is your 3-hole swivel thumb. And now actually they come in a 3-hole double swivel as well. 3-hole double swivel, or so this is the new one. Now, so that's the ergonomic umbrella, you guys. That's the ergonomics of it. Now, you can also get specialty scissors. Now, specialty scissors are things like, well, let's say a barber shear. Barber shears are 7 inches, 7.5 inches, and barbers use these. However, for cosmetologists, you can use these for scissor-over-comb. So rather than 2 or 3 cuts, it's 1 cut and it's done. Be careful though, because you'll cut your fingers off of these things, your knuckles off, but you want a 7-inch shear. You can get what's called a drop middle finger. These are really nice. This is new as well. These are by Shiseido. Your ring finger, your thumb, your middle finger stays level. All 4 fingers stay level with this. All 4 fingers as you're cutting with this. This is a really nice scissor. That's one of the new ones. And then you can get, let's see, if you cut a lot of dry hair, just to let you guys know, that is more fatiguing on your wrist. So when you're cutting dry hair, you can look for scissors that'll help you with that. They have very thick blades in the center and they just slightly taper down. So these are for dry hair, and if you point cut a lot, you need to find scissors that are very narrow. Very, very thin, narrow blades, very lightweight. So this one's for dry hair, this one's for point cutting. I'll pass this out. This is by Washi. They've been around for a long time. This is probably our #1 selling shear. I'm not positive, but it's pretty close. Why do you think it sells the most? The pink flower? Got a pink flower on it, okay? Plain and simple, girls, that's what it is. I'll pass this out, it comes with a pink and black flower, and that's cool. But I say that to say this. You're gonna see scissors in here, I've seen them in hair shows for like $2,000, $3,000, okay? You buy a $2,000 scissor in a hair show, what you're buying is the diamonds that are on the dial, okay? Girls, buy yourself a tennis bracelet before you do something like that. There is no such thing as a $3,000 scissor, plain and simple. I'll pass this out. This is a bling scissor. It's by Washi as well. This is new too. This is popular because it's got the dial. I'll pass this out, and these are cubic zirconia. These are not real diamonds. Do not put that in your purse. Those things aren't real. But what I'm trying to emphasize to you guys, you really got to look at the handle of the scissor, how it fits to your hand. That's more important than what it actually looks like. I know you want a nice looking scissor, but don't get all caught up in that. A lot of schools encourage students to buy a set. That's where you're buying a scissor and a matching thinning shear, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. However, when you're buying a set, listen up guys, this is important. You need to know how many teeth are on the thinning shear that's in that set, because the rule of thumb is the more teeth on a thinning shear, the less hair it removes. Thinning shears today are classified from carrying anywhere from 24 all the way to 43 teeth. So if you get a set that has a matching thinning shear and it has 43 teeth in it and you want to thin hair, it won't work for you. Plain and simple, it's just not going to work. It's barely going to blend the hair. The average thinning shear carries between 30 and 35 teeth. That's the average. Now the other thing I want to show you guys, what's the difference between these two thinning shears? I know in the back it's hard to see this, other than the color. What's the difference?
One has two sides of teeth.
Exactly. This one has teeth on both sides. This has teeth on one side. This is the one that's probably in your kits. Teeth are on one side, the straight blades on the other. These thinning shears, no matter where you get them, no matter how much you pay for them, they always leave lines. You got to go back over the lines to try and soften them out. If you can get a thinning shear where the teeth are on both sides like this, they do not leave lines. The problem is they're hard to find. I don't know why this is, but not many manufacturers make these. But they're kind of hard to find. These are the teeth, both sides or one side?
One side.
The one side, right. That's what you're going to get. All schools are like that. But just to let you know, if you don't have to go over the lines, just point cut them out, soften them out, and moves your haircuts faster. And time is very, very important, you know, to you guys when you're in the salon. There's two ways to do this. The first is with your fingers. If you're using your ring finger, it shouldn't go past the second knuckle. When you put your thumb in, it should go right to the tip of the thumb, no further in the first knuckle. I'm just watching some of you guys put these in your hands. Your fingers are going all the way down here. Okay? That's okay when you cut a couple of heads of hair a day. But when you start to cut any kind of quantity hair, you lose control of your shear. You can't control it. So to get that control, what people do, they still do in the salons, they take their fingers and they curl them or they claw them and they cut like this all day long. When you do that, there's a tendon, it's right below the second knuckle on my thumb. You can almost see it right here. That tendon starts getting overworked. When that happens, you start feeling pain in your wrist. That carpal tunnel forms in two spots. It forms right here and right here. Those are the two spots. So whenever you're holding your shear, always make sure your ring finger and your thumb are parallel straight across. Not like this, straight across. What's the only finger you should move when you're doing a haircut?
The thumb.
Your thumb, exactly. So in order to get that parallel fit, they have these little inserts. You can put them into the finger holes, so when you put your finger in, it doesn't allow them to go past the appropriate knuckle. These things work like a charm. Unfortunately, some of you guys need two inserts and one finger hole to make it work better, but it will make the scissor work better. So just to review that, if you're doing, you guys know whether or not you're doing this. If you're doing this right now at school, just take your scissor home with you. You don't have to cut anybody's hair. Keep your fingers straight and just practice this. Keep your fingers straight 5 minutes a day. Just practice doing this. Like the Muppets, you guys. You have to do that. Just keep your fingers across. And then the other way to measure the scissor is to the palm of your hand. You take any scissor out there, point the blade straight up toward the ceiling. When I close the blades, or I'm putting my fingernail right at the base, it forms an arrow that points toward the ceiling. Open your hand up like this. On the base of your two middle fingers, it forms an arrow that points to the floor. You take the first arrow at the base of the blades, set it on the second arrow that's at the base of your two middle fingers, go down to where the little bumper is that separates the ring finger from the thumb, and you draw what's called a horizontal line across. When you draw the horizontal line across, the line should end up somewhere between where your thumb attaches and no higher than where your lifeline comes out. On my hand, it's way up on my lifeline. It's an okay fit, but ideally you want the line to come right here, right where your thumb attaches. Girls, the good news for you guys, I've been doing this class for 15 years now. Most of these scissors will fit the female hand. They're designed for your hand, not so much the male hand. But sometimes when you line up those two arrows, that bumper is below the thumb. That means the handle's too big. It's going to start to slide on you. You start to pull your fingers. I know this is kind of hard to see. As soon as we're done, you guys can come up and I'll show you that individually if you want to see that a little closer. But let me just review this. That arrow should be right there, and the bumper should end up right about here. So for this scissor to fit my hand perfectly, that's where the bumper should line up, right about there. But I'm sorry. But the problem is, I have a bigger hand. It doesn't really fit. This arrow has to first line up here, and that brings the bumper way up. So it fits okay, but ideally you want it to come right where your thumb attaches. So again, I know that's hard to see, you guys. We're almost done. You guys can come up. We have a couple minutes. You guys can come up and I'll show you that individually. Any questions on that?